Okay, guys, welcome back to Let's Get Freaky podcast. Very excited for our guest tonight. We are joined by Stevie Strings in Florida. How are you, brother? Welcome to Let's Get Freaky podcast, man.
Let's get freaky, my friend.
Let's
And
go.
I definitely want to talk anything you want to talk. Bigfoot, the films. I am a movie producer. I do documentaries to cryptic subjects to psycho thrillers. I also am a musician, five generations of family from bluegrass music all the way down to the progressive dark metal, black metal. My son, I'm producing their albums to work on books, on cryptic books. Matter of fact, I'm helping with a local story here from a writer, hopefully to turn it into a film. And I also work with the Mr. Les Stroud. I don't know if many people have heard of the Survivor,
Yes.
but he's in my last film, and it has nothing to do with Bigfoot and stuff. It's a psycho thriller, but we can talk about if anybody want any links or where they can find me to see any of these films and stuff. But right now we can open up with the Skunk Ape Lives film. That's the one I produced probably about 5 years ago. Uh, it was it's doing very well. It's one of the top documentaries out there. You can see it on YouTube under Les Stroud. Speaking of the man, on his YouTube, if you go to Les Stroud YouTube and put in the Skunk Ape Lives, you will see that, and it is the history of what the skunk ape in Florida is all about. United States, I'm not from too sure. I don't do too many across the pond podcasts. I know everybody seems to have some type of Bigfoot in this world, from
Hmm.
South America, Mexico to the Yowies in Australia, and so on and so on. Like so, but in the States, they say there's different types. We have the Bigfoot, we have the Sasquatch in the Pacific Northwest. That's our giants. And then the Florida, which is about as far south in the United States as you can get, is a giant peninsula, is where I live. And it's for all the Skunk Ape fans, I am from the Myakka area, the Myakka State Forest area. And there is a lot of talk on the internet about a photo that came out of there of the Myakka skunk ape. It is, I don't know if you've looked it up, but it's the one, it kind of looks orangutan-ish. It's been featured on a lot of shows, Discovery channels and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's a
Which,
that's a very famous picture, that one.
yes,
I,
it
I know
is.
which one you're talking about. Yeah.
Exactly. Now, I'm not real sure, but I'm also worked for Animal Planet's Finding Bigfoot. I know I get asked a lot about that because they didn't find Bigfoot, and
Oh,
some,
yeah.
uh, it was on for 12 years. To me, I think it is. I'm in the TV business also, and it is what I loved about it. It wasn't a scripted show. There are some of these shows that you see on some of these programs here in America that are kind of unbelievable, because they are unbelievable. They get this crazy evidence every week. The Finding Bigfoot didn't. They didn't get the evidence, but they did get a lot of evidence over 12 years. But to me, I like that better. Them being very, open and skeptical, and the cast was like that. With Renee, you had Renee who did not believe in Bigfoot and stuff. So we had a couple episodes that were actually done with research teams that I have worked with over the years. I have a current research team called the Creature Man. I'm the Creature Man with a DBA. That's my registered name now, the Creature Man. And we do cryptics and stuff. And I have a team. I got a scientist um, who is very, very knowledgeable on the Florida waterways. Here, we like to use the waterways a lot. I believe every animal's got a drink, and I believe Bigfoot has to drink a lot. A lot of animals can go without food and stuff, but they got to drink quite often.
Mhm.
So we got a waterways and, migration type patterns they could actually follow. I don't know if you know the state of Florida. Some people think, oh, it's filled with, giant casinos, Miami, and all that good stuff. Yes, the coastline, some of the coastlines are pretty busy, but you're talking about a peninsula coastline that goes around the whole states and down and around, and there's lots of isolated area. Where I live right now, I live by where they call Siesta Key, one of the finest beaches in the world, and but I can go 12 miles headed east, and I'm in the swamps of Florida. I mean, we're talking rattlesnakes, lots of gators, a lot of alligators, plenty of mosquitoes, but of course, the infamous skunk ape, which is talked about a lot in Florida.
Mm-hmm.
So, present time, our team is working on the next best evidence for a skunk ape in Florida. I've been all over the country, of course, with Finding Bigfoot, doing shows, but I squatch all over since I am I'll be 68, but I got
Wow,
into,
you're looking good, sir.
oh, thank you. Thank you very much. I got into this at a very young age of, say, I was 12 years old when my father brought the infamous Argosy magazine with Patty, the infamous Patterson.
Here we go.
And of course, I was first hooked, line, and sinker when I saw the Patterson Gimlin picture on the Argosy magazine, I believe, in the 60s, 67, 68, that my father had brought home. And I was 12 years old, and I said, is this thing a real thing? This thing is amazing, And then he proceeded to he was quite the outdoors man too. I am my father's son. He plays music, but he also was quite an outdoorsman. And he started to tell me stories of the Florida skunk ape, of what he knows and what he knows about Bigfoot in general. And he proceeded to tell me a hunting story. Not that he ever saw one to eye, but he had told me this story of when he was out hunting once and he saw this hairy thing up on a ridge that was kind of far. And the number one rule for hunters is don't shoot what you cannot 100% identify. And he couldn't, even though he thought maybe it was a bear standing. Then it started to walk and it had more of a bipedal movement of a human. With that said, it was gone, and he didn't take no shot, but he just thought it was very weird and interesting. Didn't think too much of it. Went to bed that evening, only sleeps in the sleeping bag, had a 357 with him, but the rifle and stuff that he hunts where bears and what have you was up near him, a tree, and he proceeded to hear something come into camp. He had his whole thing zipped up. He said he could tell it wasn't of a quadrupedal, four-legged type of walk. It sounded really human, very gruntish, but he didn't think it was a bear because it came up to him and started pushing on the sleeping bag, and he said he could feel hand. It felt more like a hand than it would a bear claw, and it sat next to him, just pushing on the thing and grunting. And he said he never released his gun, but he was not going to shoot anything that like he always not seen with his own eyes. With that said, it got up and left, and that was his. He told me that he believed in them, but he
That's
had never.
awesome.
So, and from then on, I was hooked, and went and did a lot of investigations, and ended up with Finding Bigfoot, doing documentaries and lots of research.
See, Finding Bigfoot, that's one of my favorite shows. Love that show, man.
Thank you.
What was your role on that show, if you don't mind me asking?
I was, of course, production assistant, and moved up to field coordination, which I did drones and things like that, but also had a couple episodes that were done on stories that I was involved with. Are you familiar with the Stacy Brown Senior? There's a senior and a junior, but Stacy Brown
Yes.
Senior Thermal. That's who I originally hooked up with, and they were called the Sasquatch Hunters. I think that's probably about 15 years ago. He
Awesome.
had
We've had Stacey Brown on the show before as well. They caught some incredible footage.
Yes, yes. So that was his father that took that, and Junior was taking a documentary, and it's featured in the film. The man, sadly enough, he passed on our last film with the Les Stroud movie, but we dedicated that film to him and also my father. If you want to watch it, but he goes into the whole how he got it, what happened. And we have Clef Berkman from Finding Bigfoot, who does the analyzation and breaks it all down for you in the film. But it's a great film if you really into Bigfoot or the origin of the Florida skunk ape, because we start in the 1800s to with the Ocheezy wild man in Florida, which was actually late 1800s, but was captured. It was a known big, tall, hairy creature that was harassing kids, and it was near the Ocheezy ponds back there. And they went out and to search for this, and they found it, brought it back to the governor, and so there is records of this thing. It was sick. It wasn't a violent type creature, but was covered with hair and stuff. So it wouldn't speak. It's a very crazy story. So they put it in an insane asylum here in Florida. So with that said, there could be a Bigfoot in there. They will not let people go in there and find this grave and dig it up for DNA and stuff like that. So
Wow.
I didn't know if you ever heard that story of the Cheesy Wildman,
No.
but the governor saw it, and there's records of it. He was sent it to an insane asylum.
Wow. Do
So
they know how long it lived in the asylum for?
I'm not real sure about that. I'm sure once you start, Googling the Ocheezy wild man, there's some pretty good guys out there that do the story. And Stacy Brown Jr. has some video type stuff on that story. But
Wow.
that started off, and then the Stacy. We might have to stop here for a
Yeah,
second.
no problem, brother.
And so we end with the Stacy Brown thermal, but there are interesting stories in between. And actually, one with one of my members who his wife is our scientist, and he does a story in there too. But I think the most fascinating story, people always ask me about it. If you haven't seen it, we have a story with notable what they call wildlife, fish, and game, which are law enforcement. Who, if you saw the movie, they actually tell a story of when they ran one over in 1998 in the Apalachicola forest fires, and which is a really interesting story. So
Or can you share that with us, that story?
sure, I'm sure. Okay, here's how it goes. There was an Apalachicola fire back in, I believe, '98, and this forest is massive. It's in the northern part of Florida and runs into Georgia and near the Appalachian trails. Um, and this forest was massive. And these four gentlemen who worked for the state, and they were out on the burns doing service roads to find animals that were coming out of the fire injured or what have you. They were going down a side road, which seemed to be they were going a little too fast. They admit that. Some of these trucks that they use for the counties and state have giant barrel bumpers. They fill them with concrete so they can move trees and fallen trees and stuff out of roads and stuff like that. The gentleman was going down the road out of the side of his peripheral view. He sees something that it's on all fours. It jumps over this little ravine thing right in front of the truck. He said it was so quick they hit it, but they hit it at a full force at 40 something miles an hour, I believe. I'm not real sure about that, but he goes into the whole story that they freaked out. Oh gosh, we just killed a bear. We're supposed to be wildlife game officers saving these things, and we just ran one over. So they get out to get it and to put it in the truck because they called it, and they said they had ran something over. But here's the thing: when they got out and they look at it, they say it looks like a monkey chimpanzee of a what they described a UFC fighter with big giant muscle build and everything, approximately a little over 5 feet. But they had the story he tells. It's in such detail. I get little goosebumps thinking every time about this story because, be honest, it's my favorite one. And he said that he had ripped the jaw off and he had ran over from shoulder to this. So he has such great detail, but he had 3 other witnesses. So the 3 witnesses call in and said, hey, we ran this monkey on steroids or something. We just don't know what it is. They said, bring it in. They bring it in. Obviously, they were very interested. By the time they get in, there were the men in black. I'm not sure if they're really men in black, but had fancy badges and what have you, wanted to go right to the site. And they collected all the samples off the bumpers to all kinds of samples. And then the gentleman proceeded to tell them, all right, you guys did a good one. You ran over a bear. Oh, no, it's not a bear. And then the next words were like, and your pension's worth what? And yours is worth what? What's your pension worth? And there you go. We got the power of authority there. The quiet, hush, hush, don't tell it. Now, things that you won't see in this interview that was a 2-part, but we didn't put in the film, was the personal talk with the guys that we've had, or that gentleman in general. And he had said that he had talked to other officials that he had worked with, and they seemed to know already that they existed. He said that, as in wildlife and game throughout the country, they do not want to get involved with something that is bipedal because of the justifications or what happens. Like here, we had the spotted owl that was an endangered species, and it shut down the logging industry here in the States. So if you have a bipedal thing that's kind of smart and all that, just think what that's going to do. So they said they don't take a stance. And then he said the second thing was, you have religion. Me, I think I noticed you went to a St. Martin's or something in your school. Well, I went to a St. Martha's. So
Oh, wow.
I grew up as a Catholic. So you have, different beliefs and stuff that might consider it some type of a race. So they stay out of it. What's interesting about what he says is that the United States Army Corps back in the late 60s and stuff used to train in the Pacific Northwest. And they put in their atlas animals that you should look out while you're training in the mountains, because you train for all different types of war throughout the world, mountainous terrain. But the animals that they had put in this Pacific Northwest where they were training were bears, panthers, and guess what? The Sasquatch. And there's a picture. Now, the government since then has taken that atlas and it's taken a reverse double back type situation. But with it all, I think that the government has, quite covered up a lot of stuff, like ghosties.
100%, man. Yeah. Would you remember? I can't remember what it was, but there was an official, I'm pretty sure it was a UF government logo of air phenomenal, whatever it was, air phenomenon. I can't remember the exact words of what it was, but it had like aeroplane, helicopter, and there was a UFO in it, and it was like an official. Do you remember that? And then it sort of went, it came out for like a few days, and then it sort of, everyone was going on about it, and then it just sort of disappeared.
Now in the States, is that the one where it's actually from the Air Force? It's an Air Force.
Yeah, yeah, is that it?
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's got an actual UFO in it.
Yeah. Oh, you're right. 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 I I don't know. I think now the government is here in the States are opening up more and more and more each year.
Mhm.
So we might be getting to the bottom of this, unless we are in a election year. So let's take
Yeah,
the news and mess around. I don't
things
look
are
at
going to
this.
get wild. Things are going to get wild.
Let's talk about
If they're not
UFO.
already wild.
They seem to be letting out more and more here in the States that they have every once in a while they'll release a really pretty cool footage, and I believe that's the one you're talking about. I've seen a
Okay.
couple, But yeah, I'm sure if you look for them, you'll still find them.
Yeah.
Footage. So because they did release them. So yes.
And I have talked to people as well that have been threatened to stop talking about stuff like Bigfoot and Dogman. That seems to be a common thing that you hear. Um, yeah, it's interesting, man.
It is very interesting. Me, I mean, if you look at my YouTube and stuff, I'm not one that puts out like bent trees, pareidolia stuff. It's got to be pretty far out type freaky.
Yes.
That's can't be too disputed. I mean, there's a lot of people out there in the research business now, and a lot of clickbait people. There's hoaxers. There's plenty of hoaxers out there too, and which is a sad thing. That's why we have a scientist too. But with hoaxers, you can see if it is a hoax or not. We're in a world now with AI, and it's hard to believe anything anymore. Photoshops. To me, I really think it's going to take a body on a table. I mean, it's sad, but it would be cool if some blue-haired old lady ran one over and took it to the nearest college. Now, yeah, that would be fantastic. You
Mhm.
know, that kind of a study. But I'm afraid that that's what it's going to take, some type of body. We have looked into what do they call tranquilizing? I don't know if you know anything about the cartel, the guy that had all the animals and stuff. They had the hippos and stuff. Well, they went in there and darted those hippos and stuff and knocked them out. So I'm pretty sure you could possibly knock one of these things out. And then you could go and do full analysis, everything from endoscopy to, maybe pull some, fingernail or something. But, that's what it's probably going to take if you didn't bring one in. So that's what our team is really trying to do now, to come up with the next best thing, which would be, well, my team is very small now, and we don't hunt Bigfoot anymore like we used to. I've sat in deer stands for 5 days with deer intestines and deer pee and peeing in a bottle and not smoking and being a smoker and stuff like that. And I think they're very smart, very intelligent, that they know that they're being hunted. And that doesn't seem to show better results than if you just be yourself and go out with your thermals and your night vision and stuff, but just be yourself. But that's why I like we have the ladies, because to me personally, in all my research, it seems that they're fascinated by children's voices, which we have used audio out there with kids, left babies crying and, on audio and see if things. But I believe they are very curious with the women and children more than anything else. We always seem to have some of the best of calls. I'm not much for doing calls and all that other stuff, because I really think that they're smart enough to know that something's imitating them or something. But I do really believe they imitate calls. I recently, with my partner, my co-founder is ex forensics for NYPD. He did all the 9/11 forensics for body parts that helped identify bodies. So he's a very key partner to use to bring on the new evidence and stuff that we have. But why I told you this, we were out recently, which is an ongoing story that we've been working on for over pretty close to 3 years in this area. And we were out there and we were going to do some knocks. Knocks we will do, because I think that knocks is a communication that even chimps and primates have used for a long time. They will bang on root systems which are in ground, which gives off a lower signal, kind of like how whales communicate. You'll hear a lower signal from a distance, and bass reflects, like, when you're listening to music, you hear that boom, 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 boom. But when you're right next to it, you don't hear it, as much as you would away. So I believe in tree knocks. And so it's a good technique. Maybe some of your friends, a lot of people don't believe in tree knocks. Like, where does he find the perfect piece of wood to hit a tree back when he's doing this and all this? Well, there's also some believe that they do a mouth and like real loud. But we have drum, since we're musicians, we use drum wooden blocks. You can get them in different sizes, so you get different pitches. So my friend was getting ready to do the knocks. I got the audio out. Just as he's talking to me, they obviously, something hurt us. The thing growled at us. It couldn't have been any 40, 50 yards into this heavily wooded forest part we were at. And it wasn't happy. It wasn't happy. It actually just stood us. And all and a pack of coyotes were with it. And they just started. The stupid thing I did was I never turned on the recorder. Like, you're just fascinated because of the moment. So what I did was I tried to imitate the howl it did, and everything went silent. We never had another nothing happen. We didn't see him out there in the thermals and stuff, but it was definitely out there.
Did
But
that
this,
sound like anything you'd heard before?
yeah, some people call it the Ohio howl because it's a longer type of ooh. But what we're trying to find this evidence, we've had reports in this place. I'll go from the beginning. It is a state forest, and we first got it because of my forensic friend. He is ex NYPD. He gets police reports. So, which was really funny because a lot of his friends make fun of him, like, yeah, you're out there looking for some monkey, yeah, in the woods and stuff like this. But they had seen us in the woods with our scientists and our nice equipment and stuff and parabolics and stuff. And they said, you guys are real serious. Would you like some of our reports? Because there's one really interesting that's going on that we actually had a report from a fellow sheriff that actually wrote it down, which, and this is where it all starts. He saw it cross the road when he was leaving a police training thing. He didn't have his video on or his game cam, which they usually do because he wasn't on patrol, but he said he'd know what he saw, and it ran out in front of him, and it was only 30 yards where we're doing this investigation now. With that said, he gave him some other reports. There has been three Class A sightings also within 2 miles of this area. One was a multiple, which I like multiple sightings. I mean, multiple witnesses rather than a single when you have a whole family or what have you. And the same thing, they were all Class A sightings, which means visual within so many yards. And this thing was on all fours, jumped up in front of them, and jumped into the forest and headed out. And so that was your second report. And the third and fourth report, there are what they have primitive campsites where you really have to hike in and know what you're doing. A lot of hunters use them, or what have you, survivors or nature photographers and what have you. Well, they've had two calls. One was from some foreigners, I believe, from Asian descent or what have you. And they called in and said that they were at the one primitive site that they have a peking bear. They said he keeps walking around, peeking around the trees, and he was walking on two legs. By the time they got out there, it was gone, but they said it was hanging with them, checking out the kids because they had a kid there and was talking to it and stuff. So it stayed around. He was like, hey, bear, and things like that because they thought, they never heard of a skunk ape or a Bigfoot, but they just said it was this bear, but he could walk really good. And he kept peeking around trees and he just, things like that. And so that was a cool report. But the last one, this was in a different primitive area. And this one's one of my favorite ones. The guy is a avid hunter. But he was out there with his family, and he said about 2:00, there's a creek that runs all through there. He could hear this thing with 2 feet walking down the creek. Said he wasn't trying to be quiet at all. He could hear it, and by the time he was looking at his zipper, it had came on shore and came to his daughter's tent and pushed it. He couldn't see, it was a dark, but with a waning moon. But this is how he described it to them. He called it right into the sheriff's department and wildlife and game and said, hey, I'm a hunter, but I believe there's a poacher out here. And they're saying why? Because it's the time you can't hunt with flashlights. It's against the law. But he said the guy had a ghillie suit. I'm not familiar. Are you familiar with what they
Yeah.
call a ghillie? It looks like moss and what have you in your hair and down your body, your arms, the whole 9 yards. That's that's a Bigfoot silhouette to me, if you think. But he said he was masked. He said the guy was a monster. He said, but if he pushes on my kid's tent again, I'm taking the shot. But they said, oh, don't do that. Don't do that. Not unless you know exactly what it is, or if it attacks you, if it's a bear. But that's the third story. Since then, we've had those stories. We have been working on this area extensively, where it's come in there, it's come into our area. It's so smart. It seems to know where game cams are because we put them everywhere. We like to put them around our base camp before we go out into the deep trails and what have you, because it seems like a lot of things come in when they start smelling food and hearing music and hearing people partying. Something's curious seems to come in all the time, and that's why we think they're juveniles. I wish I was a little bit better prepared to show you some pictures and stuff that we have been getting, but I use like the LiDAR, which is a 3D imaging of these prints, but we find them in the campsite, usually when we go out or there's a couple people there, or when we're just ready to call it night. And this might be 4 a.m. So we'll hear things like they followed us in or they're there. The first time we were there, it happened. Everybody was there, and my partner had to go into town. It was like 4 a.m, and he had left. And I thought, and there's a personal little gate where we have the base camp that it's private, and you have to rent it from the state, and so other people can't come in there. And he had left. It wasn't 10 minutes later. I'm by the fire pit, which is probably about 75 yards away, and I hear crash. And I thought he had ran into the fence. And I'm thinking about us going, I looked through the thermal and it's going, oh man, he's left about 5-10 minutes ago. Never thought nothing of it. Just said, wow. Never thought about looking all around me or anything. I just thought he hit a fence maybe, but I didn't see his car or anything. But it was so loud, like a. Next morning, we're packing up, and I'm telling everybody to, we'll try again, blah, blah, blah. Not too much happened, blah, blah, blah. And as my wife is driving in front of me, I'm in the truck. I always tell my friends, do not ever touch your doors, do never touch your windows, don't touch anything, because we're up and down service roads where there's dirt, and you will find handprints off sometimes. You never know. And damn, if I wasn't looking ahead of her and I see these handprints and doodling marks and all kinds of things, and I'm like texting everybody, pull over and check your cars for prints. My friend who was from another research team, he's like, you're not going to believe it, but I got thumb and handprint on my bicycle rack that I accidentally left down. So what I'm thinking, it came by, he has a bicycle rack that folds up, big one. It's a monster. Laid it down, something tripped on it. They tried to grab it, ran into my car, hit my car in the truck. And then we found prints. We found 2 sets. One was bigger, one was smaller. We had 4 excellent prints the size of probably silver dollars. 50-cent pieces in a row. My forensic man now has taken those, and I'm not sure if you know what a man called Chickala, but he's one of the finest forensic police experts that actually knows primate fingerprints as well as humans, and he is. That's who we sent him to. Wow. So that was a really crazy night, so to say the least. All right, we've been there numerous times over the years now. We had a recent hurricane, well, not recent, probably about 2 years ago here. So we figured we were not going to get much action or nothing. We go out, nothing happens. We come back. We have another. Our scientist is female, but we have another research assistant. She's new, but she does a lot of the paranormal stuff with us and stuff. So she not only looking for Bigfoot, she's really good at the ghosts and orbs and type things. She kept saying she had a sneaky feeling that something had been following us that night and stuff. Me, I got to hear it, I got to see it, and what have you. You do get feelings, and I understand that part. Next morning, they get up, and lo and behold, behind her tent is a stack of pine cones. They had put it in a nice pile. these pine cones actually, I don't know if you know what a pine cone is, but they
Mhm.
will open and close. But these pine cones had grass that were in these closed parts of the pine cone, which meant that they had to have been brought and pulled off a ground somewhere and brought here because they were laying face up, not in the grass, but pieces of grass. So I'm like, wow, this is really bizarre. This is
Yeah.
real. But the third one was, and it's always when you don't, there's nothing on a camera or you didn't put the camera in the right place or something. And also behind her tent was the bedding. I mean, I'm going to put a story together and with all the pictures and stuff with this certain incident and the story as it goes on. But there was also a bedding area where you can see it was chewing the middle of these, what they call palmettos, which is a nutritionist cabbage in the middle. If you pull it out, it's hard to pull out. I mean, you got to be a very, 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 very strong person or tool. These were all just yanked out easily, and broken branches. So it must have sat there and just was just hanging out, and then made a little pile of pine cones for it. So,
Wow, man.
with that said, we came back again, and this is probably about 6 months later. And as soon as we get out, we go get some firewood. We're planning on going in like a 9 mile hike, from everything else. Three of us are coming back, and we heard the most incredible knock in our base camp, which is an incredible. Is to me, I could describe as a Louisville slugger hitting a hollow bell cypress tree. It was that bad that all three of us looked like, what was? Did you hear that knock? That was the most incredible knock. One of the best I've heard that I've had in my experience. Nothing, but there was nothing in the base campsite. There was four of us, so we went out and we went and did trails and stuff. One person stayed behind. They kept telling me they heard stuff and kept hearing things, but this was kind of a new greenhorn. We'll take people out for expeditions that are really into it, and if they're really into it and really want to know, we'll take them out. But a lot of them don't want to do the hike, so we set up a base camp. We give them recorders and stuff. Here's something, take pictures. If you hear this, do this. And so they were getting a little freaked out because they were cooking some bacon. That's what Bobo from Finding Bigfoot, bacon. That's the key. Always cook bacon. But anyways, that's what they were doing. And she just said they kept hearing branches in the background breaking and stuff. Didn't think nothing of it. So that night, it was, well, I'd say about 4 o'clock in the morning again. We're all going back to our tents, and one of the female researchers, her name's Carol, she was saying something to me. Oh, I'm going to go to the bathroom, and then I'm calling the night. And I said, well, I'm just going to watch a little YouTube and listen to the night sounds and what have you, and see if I hear anything. And I'm sitting there, and it was a wane night again, a moon waning, so you can't see a whole lot. But the way my tent was, my windows were on each side of my peripheral view, but ahead of me, my tent is white. So if something walks by in a moon, I can see that shadow, right? So I'm sitting there, and I swear there's somebody walking by my tent. So I even go, "Hey, Carol, is that you out there? You okay?" And nobody said nothing. It got real quiet. So I stop, and then I hear it again, but it's closer to my tent. But I don't see nothing. I don't see this thing at all. And I said, well, I'm just going to hit it with the lights and just see what this is. Then it hit me. Oh my God, she's probably taking a pee. This would be very embarrass me. Hey, what are you doing? And she's over there taking a leak, and wow. But I didn't think nothing of it. Started watching TV, but I could definitely hear it. And then the next morning, we're gonna start. We eat, and we're gonna pack up. She goes, "Oh my God, look at this!" Guess what she has? She has a pile of pine cones behind her tent. And I said,
Whoa.
"To your tent last night to take a piece?" She goes, "No, I have a little container pot thing in my tent." Let's go. Yeah, because now the more I thought it was you, I would have heard your zipper. Did you hear people when you're out in the base camp out there tonight taking leaks or whatever? But I didn't. I thought, what if the thing? And I go, why didn't I see it? Then I thought, what if it's on all fours? Every one of these reports, people were telling me that it was on
Yeah.
fours,
The
and it was
spider crawl. Some people say like the spider crawl.
exactly the spider claw. Or if you just watch chimps in general when they're running, they run like this, and a a quad type movement. Um, so with that said, guess what? There was a little bedding area, broken plants, something had sat behind her and just was hanging out. Something that I saw was big.
Wow.
We found prints. And so these are all going to be here in these little sites and stuff when we once get it. But we really want to get, I usually when I go in a team, I have three people in my, if we don't split up, I have three people with me. I like to have some of the more talented of my partners if we have greenhorns, but I have somebody that does sound parabolics in front, of course, so they're not picking anything up behind them. And once they pick up anything that sounds of movement, bipedal, what have you, then that becomes the thermal imaging guy who comes in to find something, which would probably be me because I have a Helian that's a very, very nice camera that can see up to 2,000 yards. You can spot something. And then you have your night vision guy. So if she picks something out and she's recording it and we find something with the thermal, and then you get a night vision, and then fourth, you all turn on your lights and every camera you got, you see what it is, and
Yeah.
find as thermal imaging is very good to me. I caught a thermal image. People often ask me, have you ever seen it? I've been in situations where things are thrown at me from the size of basketball rocks to boomerang type sticks to things, but I never seen one eye to eye. I saw one in the thermal once, which is in a book that we could talk about later. But one of the best thermals I had with my scientist friend too, and I saw that's where I was very truly convinced that it was a Bigfoot. I mean, from the thermal imaging of it, and also my friend that was with me. And guess what? Back then, we had what they called the flares, and they had a DVR which you have to plug in or have a battery pack, the old school, because thermals and night visions didn't have built-in cameras back then. And it's the actual flare that Stacy Brown Sr. caught, the thermal. So we were up in the tower and we heard the knocks. And I'm looking and I don't see anything, but I noticed the DVR is dead. I said, well, we need to walk back to base camp, get some new batteries because they gave us dead ones, or this one's already dead. So we're walking down this boardwalk trail in the middle of this swamp that's had many sightings. And I said, oh, well, let's stop off to the side of this one swamp that I know off in the side. And as soon as I look in there, I see it. And this thing couldn't have been any more than possibly 70 to 80 yards. It was massive. It was in a hunching form. And it looked, if I had to describe it, it looked kind of silverbackish in a build, but it had no neck and it was pulling out what they call cattails, which is a very edible source of plants. And that's why I also thought was very weird because it knew what it wanted to pick to eat. And as soon as I saw this, I did not tell my partner what I'm looking at because I just want to say, tell me what you see and what in every detail. And as soon as he looked, he goes, something squatting in the water. It looks like a silverback gorilla with no neck. Exactly what I saw. And I said, give it here. And as soon as I got it back, trying to see if I can just get a second. Oh, sorry, I'm getting out of battery. So it says low battery. Oh, sorry. But when I went to look again, it was gone. It was just gone.
Man.
A lot of tree line and stuff, but it was gone. But
Wow.
that's my, if I saw one,
So you
that's my,
have seen one, man. That counts for me.
yeah. And my friend scientist and they're very skeptical, and he definitely he had seen one once before, but at a distance. But he thought this was the most amazing thing he had seen in a thermal for sure.
How
But
big would you say? I know that's difficult because you're looking at it through thermal,
right.
and you. How big would you, if you had to guess, how big would you say it was?
And whenever something like that happens and we try to recreate it, this was in a situation that you couldn't get to. It was just such a bad swamp. Even for 80 yards, it was there was quicksand. We might have to be yanking people out and all
Yeah.
kinds of stuff if it was trying to get to where we saw it. But I, to me, guesstimate from what I see from trees and what I could gather, I figured it was probably pretty dang close to 6 foot 4 inches, give or take, and probably possibly 3 to 325 in weight. And so, and I was
Wow.
for a small one because Florida here, um, We have different sizes. They say that in the Everglades, which is further south, they're smaller, they're skinnier, they don't have the build of the Sasquatchians in the Pacific Northwest all the way across our country. But where the Stacy Brown thermal was, guess what? That was in Upper Florida, and they guesstimated that 8'2" or something if you watch the film. And
Yeah.
it is definitely massive. Whatever
And
he
the arms, the
the
length of the arms are wild.
right, right. Um,
Man.
with that said, I'm still looking, but I'm going to get the next best thing this time. 3 to 4 pieces of evidence.
Yeah.
That's what it's going to take unless you get the body. At least something really good.
Yeah,
You know.
man. Those going back to those pine cones that were left outside the tents. Do you think
Yes,
that was a form of gifting? Or what do you think that
that's
was?
that's yes. Honestly, yes, I think so. I've worked on the Bridges property, which was featured 2 or 3 times in Finding Bigfoot. I think twice. I'm not sure if you ever seen the episode where the Bigfoot came to the people's house and put the handprint in their house, and they had this massive handprint and was killing snakes and putting them on the porch and all that, and breaking into that place there. And that I've worked at. It's been years. I'm going to go back recently. I've talked to her. I finally made some reconnections with her. But that place is insane. Um, some people might say some things about her and stuff, but I think she's something we don't understand.
Hmm.
I think she's something else. I mean, her husband's an architect and stuff, but she gets gifted all the time. She has some of the coolest gifting things that I've ever seen. They web vines into almost like a dream catcher type pattern. She gets a lot of, like I said, snakes that, or they'll find a dead snake and they'll bury it. And guess what? It picks it up and puts it by the front door and positions it and stuff like that. But there's also bad stories about that place. It kills her cats. Doesn't kill her dogs, but it kills her cats. Strange, huh? Rips them in half.
Whoa.
Fence posts. I mean, it's crazy. I know a lot
Man.
of people thought that Bigfoot is, Harry and the Hendersons. He'll live in your basement and cook your breakfast. Talk to some of these Native Americans. They don't let their women here in the Seminoles. Some of my Native Americans friends, they don't let their women out in menstrual cycles, even to this day, out there in the cypress swamps and stuff, because they said thing will snatch you, especially a woman. So what is it?
Wow.
I don't know.
Yeah. Did that lady that was on the property, was she seeing the Sasquatch as well?
Yes, she's got a million stories. If you watch, I think it was season 2, episode 2. That's one. Well, she'll tell you a lot of things, but yes, she tells you the stories of orbs. I have seen orbs on this. There's spirits. I have not had any ghost contacts. We can talk about ghosts in my paranormal things, but I have never seen any of the ghosts. But I have seen these orbs, and I've seen them like they look like little red eyes, and they just I've seen different kinds, and they just bounce through the woods and they get really close, and then boop, they're gone. And or I'll see them flash out of the ground. I've seen one flash out of the ground in there before with multiple people with me. And yeah,
Interesting.
it's a crazy story.
I've
She
talked to
believes,
a lot of
well,
people that have seen things like that, and that's
right.
interesting, man.
Dr. Jeff Meldrum's been there. I'm not sure if you know with him. I put a picture up today and tagged you with it about the
Yeah.
pod. But yes, he believes they're there too. Um, there's been all kinds of people. BFRO has been there. Actually, BFRO, if you're not familiar with it, or some of your listeners, it's the Bigfoot research organization with all their data from Matt Moneymaker for many, many years. But they actually go out to send one of their researchers to the story to give it credibility or what they think or what they find and stuff. But he's been there. The BFRO were scared and didn't come back for a long time. They said they had it chased them through the woods. They could hear him, never seen him, but it chased them, threw stuff at them and stuff, and was not happy with them. But they came back, did get the prints, and they're very amazing prints. Um, I've had
Wow.
another story out of there from when they were building, and it's a beautiful place. Everybody thinks of Florida that is flat. Well, up there you can go 140 feet down into ravines and stuff like that. And these gentlemen were putting in some carpet, and they were near the windows where they could see down the little valley down there. And they were from another country. It was hard to talk to them a little bit. They were, I think, Hispanic, but what they were saying, they one thing, the owners came home and all the equipment they were supposed to finish this carpeting, it was all left, all the equipment, all this. Called them up, and they tell them, "Oh, we're going to quit the job, but we want to come back to get our equipment." They're going, "Well, why would you quit?" And they told her, "You got big monkeys, real big monkeys," and they climbed down the ravine and stuff. They told her and stuff. I've had the lawyer that did some of the real estate lawyer stuff. He said he saw one. He saw an old gray one just looking at him, and it was out to the side. He didn't know. He said his heart stopped. And so there's been some, credible witnesses too. So then you got Dr. Jeff Meldrum. I mean, he's PhD, anthropologist in bipedal and hominids. It's a weird place. But I heard somebody's doing a documentary on portals and stuff there recently. So once I find out what's going on, she said I'm allowed to come. I can come back. She's invited me back. So we'll research up there. It's just quite far from where we're at, though, even though we live in the same state.
Yeah. So interesting, man. Those going back to those red lights that you saw and then the orbs, what do you think they are? I know that's difficult because we don't know, but what do you think they are?
Yeah, to be honest, obviously energy, some type of energy. You you can Google brown lights. I have Julia, who I was talking about. She's going right now across the country doing some research for us, and she's near the brown lights now in North Carolina, where these orbs they're massive. They're the size of some as softball to basketball, and cruise through these forests, and you can see shadows of them. So they're emitting energy and light. But there's scientists say, swamp gas, this, that. But it's got to be some kind of energy. Everything, there's so many mysteries out there in the woods. To me, I sometimes I see things when I'm really out there that, God, did I just really see that, or did I see that or hear that? I hear a lot of times, though. We were talking about imitations. I hear like owls being imitated by something, because I will imitate creatures out there. Or I'll do a injured pig or something. I have callers and stuff, see if something will come in and get it and stuff. But every once in a while, you'll hear like you'll hear coyotes going off, and then you'll hear this like something's imitating, and they'll shut up. I believe they work with the coyotes. We've been out there with dogs before to see if we can find them. We found a great trackway, and guess what was in all this trackway were coyote prints. So they were traveling with this people or pod. We believe it's a small pod. It's probably two juveniles and a mother. That's what we're coming down to. So they're distinctively three-size prints. So two smaller ones and a bigger one. It's about 15 inches. The other one's about 12, and the other one's under about 11. But they're all incredibly wide. They're very wide, 5 inches or more, even the little ones, which is definitely not 5 inches wide. So, but what's really convincing is the strides that can be made by a human, because we'll go and try to do the strides and the measurements and what have you. But who's walking out in some of these woods barefooted, 10 miles way in there when there's palmetto, sawgrass, all that nasty stuff on the ground that can even pierce your shoe sometimes.
Mhm.
So it's crazy when you see one show up on a service road somewhere or something, and then it goes back in. So, and that's how we found it. The dog found it. That's how I'll say the dog found it. My friend said he did. But yeah, it's just my dog. I saw it.
So interesting, man. And this another difficult question. What do you think a Bigfoot is, like, in your opinion?
Me, I get that asked a lot. I believe it's a missing link. I believe evolution can change like that. You have this fish like this, and then the fish can walk on water. within small amount of time of evolution. So I believe it's some part of evolution that got not quite human, but not quite apish. I mean, we can talk Gigantopithecus all you want, and I'm kind of a little skeptical on that, but I really believe it is some type of missing link with intelligence. But I don't think it's smarter than man. I really don't. I don't think
Interesting.
so. But so we should be able to get one. I really
Yeah.
do.
So are you in, because obviously there's two camps in the Bigfoot world, the flesh and blood and the woo camp. I'm somewhere in the middle. What do you think?
If I didn't keep an open mind, then I wouldn't be a very good researcher.
Hmm.
Yeah, I really think it's flesh and blood. I really think it could be, there's just too much stories and evidence that has been turned in that somebody maybe hit it or saw it a massive piece of hair with skin on a barbed wire fence, and it comes back, which we've had stuff come back, unknown primate. But what good does that give you? I mean, if it's animal, they don't know. So, but it's interesting that it has come back unknown primate or
Wow.
unknown or but
So you sent off hair samples.
oh yes, but that too is very costly. And that's why we have a forensic guy. So you got to do your homework before you send stuff. And I know people, will send in a piece of moss, and here's $2,000 to tell you it's a piece of moss.
Yeah.
you know, if you look at hair, you would want to look at under microscopic for a medulla. They believe I like to follow Dr. Jeff Meldrum's Bigfoot handbook when it comes to the medulla hair sample things and how primates and stuff, how the medulla looks between a human and a primate. So that's what you want to look, just to see if you can find the medulla and stuff before you go sending in something and that you're going to waste your money on.
Hmm.
I see send in fecal matter and stuff, and a lot of times the mucus and stuff is it's not valid after 24 hours. Or they might send in the wrong end, because you think about where the fecal matter is going to be. It's going to be where it first comes out, not at the end where it's pointed and snapped out. I know it sounds gross, but people just send in the wrong things, and you've done wasted your money and stuff. But yeah, I think that that's why it's going to probably take a body or a mass amount of evidence of one species or one subject.
Hmm.
So, and
Yeah.
that's also a good video too.
Yeah.
So,
It's difficult, as you said earlier, with AI and stuff, to prove something now with a video. It's going to be difficult. But
yes,
for me, the Patterson Gimlin film, Stacey Brown's film, there's already great videos out there which
mhm,
suggest that these things are definitely real.
right. It's definitely real. But like we were talking earlier about, there are people that hoax stuff, and I'm a filmmaker too. I've seen incredible Photoshop stuff, incredible AI stuff. I followed a guy once that was doing UFO things. This was maybe about 10 years ago, to where he was fooling scientists, and then he was he worked for I think it was either Disney, some big film company or something, but he had programs, really good stuff that he could CGI stuff and unbelievable stuff with shadows, and you could see the UFOs are really cool looking. They'd be cruising through like forests and you would see shadows on the tree. So it was like, wow, this is the best footage. But he wouldn't say it was real. And then he would come out and say, it's fake. I'm a movie producer or
Mhm.
whatever have. So it's really hard to believe what you see. I mean, look, even to today's standards, they can't figure out that Patterson Gimlin thing. I mean, I'm still on the fence on it myself. So I'm not going to say it's real. I'm not going to say it's fake, but because there's so much behind the story with Roger Patterson himself. I mean, there's a
Mhm.
lot of red flags. But Bob Gimlin truly believes in that. Bob Gimlin's a really good guy. He really is. I don't know if you see any of his
Mhm.
conferences, his talks. He was the other man that was with Roger Patterson. Some of you didn't know,
Have
but
you met
he
Have you met Bob Gimlin?
yes, I've seen him. Yes, very, very kind man, very gentle soul. But well, who knows? He could have been helped by Roger. Who knows?
Yeah,
There's flags there. I mean,
because
Patterson have a picture of Patty in a book before he took that film that looks just like the film. I don't know if you knew that. He had a
No,
book.
what's that?
There's a Roger Patterson book. I guess if you just look at the Roger Patterson book of the pictures that he drew of the Bigfoot will look just like Patty. So very,
Really?
yeah. So there's red flags like that. And of
Oh, I
course,
didn't know that.
the camera had to be back that day. That's a big flag, a red flag. And oh, he got the best footage, today's standards supposed to be.
Yeah.
Um, and of course, everybody's going to tell about you can see muscle, but and then people say, well, look, it's got a diaper butt. That's one of the biggest ones they say. And then you have Bill Munns, who does the Star Wars stuff, who goes around and just talks about this whole um, costume versus real, and he believes it's the real deal. I mean, he's got a very good presentation. So that's why I'm always on the fence when I think, then I hear what he says or what Jeff Meldrum says, about muscles and this and that and stuff. But so we'll find out. I think people will find out once that Bob passes, and he's that maybe some truths people might not want to talk while he's alive and stuff. Um, are you still seeing me?
Yeah, I can
Okay.
still see you, sir.
Okay. It's just I'm
Man.
out of battery, so that's all.
Are you
I can,
nearly out of battery?
yeah. Do you, if you want to take a break, I just go run in the other room and put it on the charger.
Yeah, okay. We'll pause it for a second and then we'll start again.
Okay. But there are definitely some very interesting videos other than the Patterson Gimlin ones. I know there's some out in the Canadian area that look really good. I know Todd Standings. Are you familiar with Todd Standings? I believe, I believe some of his stuff. I believe he saw Bigfoot before, but I don't. I'm not buying into some of those pictures. Have you seen some of them?
Interesting. Yeah, the close up on the face.
Right. There's one that definitely has looks like an Ewok. You can see the glass eyes and stuff, and he's definitely got some interesting stuff. I know some people believe they were real, but I don't. I don't think they're the real deal to me. Some of those kind of, I don't know. I believe he had a real good experience one time, but he's just trying to recreate it and stuff. But some of that stuff just looks too scripted to me and stuff. And then some of his past and his wife. And I mean, there's his family's in the film and stuff, no special effects. I know they took the one picture where you can see the real perfect picture of its face and it's got the hair and stuff. Well, they've matched it with his face and lined the lips and everything, say it's him and stuff. So, and then he had that famous Netflix video. And
Mhm.
that's a really, I mean, it's a great video. I mean, if you really look at it and that thing's looking at you, I mean, it's so clear and stuff. It
Yeah.
kind of looks more apish than anything. But yeah, it just seems too scripted to me if you watch it. But there's other evidence that I was trying to think of. There's one in Calgary where the family comes up and it's this massive orange one that's sitting on the other side and looks at him and then takes off. I mean, the thing is incredibly humongous. The other ones that I like are the Provo Canyon videos, the ones with the kids, and the one where it's actually throwing rocks at the guy at a parking lot, parking lot, and that one's very good. I like the one where there's one in, I believe it's in Calvary too, where it's actually picking up trees and tossing. I know it's kind of blurry. It was really a foggy morning, but
I
there's
know what
nothing.
video you mean. Yeah.
And tree. I don't know if you're familiar with that video, but this thing is throwing trees. I mean, he's actually throwing a tree.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. These
so
things, they're obviously like when it comes to the forest and their natural habitat, so much more advanced than we are. Like
but
like
yes,
and the power that these things must have. Um,
right,
it's wild, man.
right. I really believe that the Ron, what is it, Ron Moorhead, they did the Samurai Cherry. I really believe
Yes.
that they are lingual. That's why I think they're very smart because not only him, but I've had personal people told me accounts of they've heard them talk before. Some say they talk. I don't know how you would describe it, kind of what like a mongoloid would type, type of voice and stuff. So I do think they are legal, or have at least some type of that. They know what they're saying to each other every once in a while.
Yeah.
But but I do truly believe that they use the knocking system for either warnings. I believe they whistle to each other. I hear a lot of the crazy whistles. I know which birds whistle at night. Most birds here in Florida, there's not many that whistle. They're usually predators or prey that screech, screech owls and stuff like that, um, night hawks and stuff. But you'll be out there and you'll hear, trying to whistle to you and stuff, or whistling into something,
Yeah.
if they're warning or what have you. Like,
Have
every, you know, has their own. Somebody's asked me the other day, so you're an expert on Bigfoot and all that, and they introduced me as that, and I was going, well, I'm not far from an expert, and there's not really any experts, or we'd have one. Maybe we would, because there's just so many stories of what they can do and what they can't do, or they're this and this and this.
yeah.
So
Have you heard of the book called Enoch? I believe it's
I
called Enoch.
do. I have some knocks, which is a very good story. My friend who Chris D'Angelo, he's my forensic guy. He's also a percussionist. So that's why we use those percussion things. Now, these blocks, mine's wooden, and it looks kind of like a cowbell. I'd say probably about 6 inches by 3 inches. He has one that's made out of fiberglass. So, and it's a little smaller. So they come in pitches because they're percussion instruments. We were in what they call the Gothi Forest, and very strange stuff going on in there. And that's the one that something threw and hit my wife with a stick. That's another whole long story.
Whoa.
And anyways, they oh, I lost point of thought. Where was that with this
The the knock.
the knock? So he whips out his little fiberglass one, and we got it on videos, one of my audios, and he does a three knock, like a key, 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 and it came back instantly with the same sound frequency, almost as if somebody had to find something exactly what he had and return it. Now that was one of the most. All three of us looked at each other like, I had another percussionist with us, and all of us knew exactly what I was thinking. Did you hear that? And they go, yeah. But what was different about it? It sounded like it was his. I was going, exactly.
Wow.
What could have done that? I made that blew my mind. It just blew my mind. It was because it was in a whole different frequency than other knocks that we had. But
Yeah.
it was just like if somebody had recorded and then played it back loud. And it was instant return too. It was within 2 seconds. So yeah, that was very bizarre. I had
Interesting.
one where this was the knocks that happened when the stick, kind of long story. Maybe we can end it on this story because it's one of the better ones. Okay, we're in the Gothi Forest, and I've been working with this spiritual woman. Maybe you can have her on. She has some incredible stuff and that goes on this forest. She told me, if you can find this 1,000-year-old tree out there, she says you'll find them. And I was like, oh, really? And so I did a little research, and it wasn't real hard to find, but you had to go way back out in the middle of the Skoti Forest. It's 60 square miles, nothing, just maybe service road here and there, creeks and what have you, filled with the cypress bell type shaped trees, which is really cool. Well, this was a cypress tree, 1,000 years old. And we find it. And as soon as we pull in, it's this little teeny area, and it shows you have to go way back into the woods, and then you'll find a boardwalk, and then you follow the boardwalk, and there's the tree. So we get there. As soon as I open the door, we hear this outrageous knock. What? And I was like, wow, very impressive. My scientists were with me, and we're all like, wow, we actually had a rookie greenhorn with us. He was with us for 3 days. So it's kind of a little funny story, too. And he's like, well, what's that? And I was going, that's some knocks I was telling you about. And he goes, yeah, you always tell me to look up in the trees, too, also with the thermals. Why? And I go, you never, they think that they put them up young in the trees and, what have you and stuff. And I said, and you never know, one of them might just jump out of a tree and do a Mike Tyson and bite your ear off, just joking with the greenhorn. So for the 3 days. So we get out there, and at the knock, I said, well, we might as well not go. We might as well go lights on or whatever you want to do. Let's just be ourselves. We'll go out there, we'll go to the tree and see what's going on, because that's where I believe the knock came from, that area. Go out there, start just talking, what have you. We're there for about a half hour, and I'm trying to let him borrow the tools. I hear something on my parabolic, and it was an armadillo. So I don't know if you're not familiar with armadillos, but parabolic amplifies so much if you're not real used to it. So I said, "Hey, you want to hear something? I can hear something." Armadillo, so small, can sound like Godzilla. So I gave it to him, and he's just freaking out. Let's come closer. Let's go. No, here, take the thermal. You'll see it. See that little thing? That's an armadillo. He goes, oh, oh. So I put the parabolic back on, and as I did that, I could hear something actually doing a bipedal movement. I'm very good with sound, with being in the music my whole life and stuff. So that's what I'm really looking for is a bipedal movement, but not a crunch, but something sneakier, more like a. And that's what I'm picking up. And Glenn knows it. I asked Glenn, tell me what you hear. Because I never tell him what I'm hearing. He said, I hear something trying to sneak out there. Couldn't see it in thermal. I was like, wow, that's crazy. That's crazy. So we're sitting there, and all of a sudden we hear this another killer knock. Guess where it's coming from? Where our car is, that direction. So I was like, wow, that's incredible. Let's just go lights on and go back towards the car and see what we can see. And I'm thinking with my crew, I said, we'll just come back and look for tracks and stuff. Something out there was out there. So when we're coming back, I have lights on. We're coming, and all of a sudden, out of my peripheral view, the greenhorn was in front of me. I mean, my wife is in front of me. The greenhorn's behind me. The scientist and her husband's in the front. We're going down, and all of a sudden, I just out of my peripheral view, I see this stick about this big, coming at me. Now, people say, yeah, they get things thrown at them. Well, branches do break off, sticks do break off from trees. This came at me like a frisbee, like a boomerang. I could see it coming this way.
Whoa.
Hits my wife in the back. Hits the palmetto in her back. And the kid goes, why would you hit your wife like that? Now, I'm telling you this because all this, what happens next, and all this was just in a matter of seconds and seconds, just mere seconds. As soon as it hits her, he's like, what did you hit your wife for? And I was going, I didn't. I'm telling Glenn, I was going, Glenn, she just get hit with a stick. And as soon as he said this, above us, the tree starts shaking, making this noise. This foul odor just filled the forest. And this guy freaks out. He starts screaming like a woman, ran into the dark. Because he says, he's going to bite me in the ear. See ya. It's in the tree. It's going to bite me in the ear.
Wow.
I pack when I go in. I'd rather have one not needed than needed not have it. I said, you get the camera, I get this. And Glenn looking at it, and he's looking, he's going, it's a buzzard. It's a buzzard. And he's tangled in something, like looks like line or something. So what happened was when that stick hit, it freaked the buzzard out, made him poop, it let it all out, all this, and what have you. So we go to the car, and we say, well, we got to reevaluate all this stuff. Come back tomorrow. Glenn comes back, finds a trackway, beautiful prints. They're even featured in a book. So this thing didn't want us back there.
Wow.
This thing back there. But yeah, we had to go find the guy. He screamed like a woman. He said, "It's gonna bite you in the ear." Yeah. In the air, but it was very, 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 very cool.
Man.
Yeah.
Stevie, this has been awesome, brother. Thank you so much. But I can listen to you talk about Bigfoot all night. It's one of my favorite subjects, and you've really interesting, man. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And like I said, tell your friends to watch the Skunk Ape Lives if they want to see some of our research or our work.
100%. I will put all the links in the show description for all your movies, for everything you want me to share. Can you tell the listeners where they can find you?
You can find me the quickest way if you want to talk to me or anything. I will look at my Facebook. So look at Stevie Strings. You'll see that crazy ass clown face. That's from a movie I did from Rob Zombie's, one of his side film things. I was a cannibal clown. So I use that when I play guitar and also in the films. But when you see that crazy clown, Stevie Strings, that's me. And you can ask me any question or any link and what have you. I'm building my link tree as we speak, so you can find my YouTubes and stuff. But yes, that's where you'll find me the best. I don't do Instagram or any of those other ones. I'm getting too old. I can't keep up with all that kind of tech. techno social media stuff.
Oh,
Way too
you
busy.
are awesome, brother. I'd love to get you back on because I know there's more we can talk about
Yes, sir.
paranormal, UFOs, and all that other freaky stuff as well. So I'm excited to talk to you again, man. But thank you so much for tonight. I look forward to talking again soon.
Thank you for having me, and we'll do it again, man, for sure. For sure.
100%. Thank you so much, man. Guys, thank you so much for listening. If you've enjoyed the episode, share it where you can. That is a great way to support us. We'll be back very soon for more freaky conversations. In the meantime, stay safe and keep it freaky. Thank you very much, brother.
All right.